Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is not playing around, and I would say a lot of generals and admirals most likely are a little scared because he recently announced the cut of around 20,000 of the stars that are currently in the military right now. And I would say there's actually another revamping of this process, which has obviously been in alignment with that, to pretty much say we're not going to allow status quo people that fulfill certain arbitrary requirements to be promoted because of X, Y, and Z being in line. Now, let's play this clip that you should be watching and kind of go over that.
President Trump was sworn in 6 months ago. And under his leadership, the Department of Defense began moving on three main initiatives. We've talked about them: restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, and reestablishing deterrence. The results so far? Distractions like DEI, CRT, social justice, politically correct stuff, gone. Focus on standards that are high, gender neutral, equal, and unwavering. We've got unprecedented recruitment numbers, and bad actors like Iran and the Houthis understand that when President Trump talks, he means what he says. That's just a small part of the list. Our reforms have only just begun. America's sons and daughters who serve in our military deserve the best leaders commanding them, which is why we need to reform the promotion system at DoD, how we get those leaders. We're proud that Brigadier General Anthony Tata has just been confirmed as our Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. His predecessor, Jay Hurst, signed a memo tasking the services to support reforms that I've asked my friend, Stu Sheller, you know him, to recommend changes by looking at the entirety of the selection and retention process for our military's officer corps. And that includes training and professional military education, officer evaluations, promotions, and command selections. And Stu, thanks for doing this for us, man.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
How we reform the force and identify talent, I think, is one of the most important things we can do, sir. So I believe this initiative is something that is going to lead us to victory in the next war. And to you, sir, I appreciate the honor of serving in your administration, but I'm not going to rest. I'm not going to stay quiet. And I'm going to keep fighting until we get this right, because people, ideas, things in that order, people are our most important asset.
Yes.
So having the ability to go after and identify talent and bring them to the top, there's nothing more important that we can do.
No doubt. You had the courage to speak up when no one else would. And we need to have officers who understand where their compass is. They're not risk averse. They're not playing the game. They're not simply checking the box to get to the next level, which creates all the wrong incentives. We're reviewing the whole thing because we're here to make institutional change that brings warfighters to the top. And this is a historic opportunity under President Trump, who gives us the shield to do these kind of things in the department so that we preserve it for generations to come. Because both Stu and I think about the possibility of our kids serving one day. And we want to ensure that we have the best of the best leading them. We have to get this right. And with Stu leading it, we're going to get it done. We will.
Yeah, so if that's not a familiar face for you guys, I covered in depth on this channel, step by step, Stu Sheller's career, essentially, as he put everything on the line and said there were issues with Afghanistan's pullout, where he was going on record in uniform saying someone had to be held accountable for this, and essentially put himself in the limelight in direct fire, which he was at 17 years in the military. He was a lieutenant colonel. He had done all of those arbitrary marks to get up to that level. He even said it. He was like, in my interview, he was like, I'm up for colonel. Like, he knew he was going that pathway. But on the morals of what he saw was wrong, he spoke out against it, which is why it's crazy. The old guard that essentially kicked him out of the military and brought him down and made him lose all of his retirement and whatever else has essentially now led to this opportunity where he's now able to actually implement the change he was looking at. And that's because this memo here says evaluating military officer promotion and selection procedures. And it says the Secretary of Defense is committed to fair, transparent, colorblind, and merit-based processes to select and promote the best officers to lead our men and women in defense of our nation. As such, the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel Readiness will assess current programs and policy, including the Department of Defense Instruction 1320.14, and it says December 16, 2020, to ensure we select superior military leaders. Objective standards and measures should be at the forefront of the promotion and selection process. This holistic review of military officer promotion and selection process across the department will incorporate an examination of current policies and procedures to examine evaluations, promotion selection boards, command selection boards, and professional military education. And I think that is something that in the military has been very much overlooked and has been kind of the moving target, because I've seen so many times where they're like, you need a picture of yourself for promotion in the officer corps. Oh, you don't need a picture. Oh, because without the picture, we didn't get the results we wanted, so we're now adding it back. And then you're just like, what is this thing that we're doing? Like, are we looking at these things of evaluations, merit-based, stuff like that? Why are we not just using the DoD ID number of service members to say, this is your number, your gender, your race, your name? None of that is included. So in my mind, I'm like, that sounds the most fair to me. But it continues to not be. And I don't know why that is. But I'm just going to put that out there. Other thing I've seen is a lot of promise of changes of promotional systems, where I can tell you, I think it was now like 5-6 years ago, the Navy is talking about overhauling their promotion system. Never saw that. It feels like such a overburdened red tape thing, where to try and get changes on evaluations, fit reps, things like that tends to be one of the hardest things out there. And to be honest, I support the decision that Stu Sheller is part of this process, because everybody, and I mean almost everybody in the time that he came out was like, hey, sir, officer, lieutenant colonel at this time, I love what you're preaching. I love what you're saying, but you're doing it in this uniform. And so it's like, it just makes like a no-brainer sense that somebody that had to go through that system, that lived through it, could also now look at things where people are competent as warfighters. And even so, people on social media are obviously supporting Stu Sheller during this moment, because they're saying this. This person says, man, I'm just proud to say I served under you. You are not like anyone else. You helped me when no other hire would. You cared for your team and all of us. Thank you. May God continue to bless you and your work you're doing for your military. Travis Hunter Bradbury says, just imagine your old chain of command now. You, the man they tried to silence and even threw in jail, now standing next to the Secretary of Defense. Thanks for speaking up. And I think that a lot of people have been wanting this overhaul of looking at officer ranks, looking at the need. And that's just because not only is it how the military functions in the chain of command and making orders go through and having total cognizance. It feels like a lot of people in the military have like a third of the pie to make one decision. And essentially what happens is you have people that they're like, well, I can only control 33.3%, and the other two, it's not their priority, so they're not going to focus on that. So it's hard to move the ball in that bureaucracy. A lot of people do state that, like, in World War II, we had a lot less generals and admirals that were out there, and so they cite that as like a reason why we should not have as much. But then also on the idea of not just the functionality of making decisions and being able to implement them, but also the idea of a lot of people look at the DoD budget and they're like, this is so inflated. And so how can we actually slim that down and actually empower people? That's a huge thing in what allows people to be retained, because if people are able to make decisions and actually lead and feel empowered, not be cut down by the other 66% or whatever majority could make that decision, it's going to make people feel like they are more bought in to actually make the system better. So I give kudos to Stuart Sheller during this entire thing. I'm interested to see how promotions will change. This is just the start of everything, obviously. This is a big ship. But I would like to see what you guys think about officer promotions and what should change, or what your thoughts are on Stuart Sheller in general now that years have passed. Let me know down in the comments below.